Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to be giving you a beginner's guide to using layers in GIMP 2.10. Okay, let's quickly open up the web browser, and I've got these 4 images that I want to download from Pixabay. They're all free images, so we're going to click free download. I'm just going to click download here at 1920 by this resolution here, and we'll just tick this option, and it's going to ask me this annoying captcha like usual, and we select boats. We'll click download, and we've got one of this eagle, so we'll click free download as well. Hopefully it won't ask me that question, but it did, which is very annoying, but that's quite easy. And then we want this hills, so we're going to download that one. And we want mountains. Where are the mountains? Here, here, and here. And then finally we've got this tree, so we download that one. And traffic lights, and then click download. So we've got 4 pictures here. Let's drag this to one side, and we'll open up this folder on my desktop, and we're just going to drag those 4 pictures into here. Let's drag this one, just make sure we've got all the right images. So we've got a tree, we've got the landscape, we've got the bird, and then we've got the plane. So we're going to use these images, and we're going to create layers, and we're going to use those layers to stack these images on top of each other, so you get a better understanding of how to use layers in GIMP software. So let's go ahead and open up GIMP software. Okay, so we just got an empty GIMP application loaded here, and the first thing we want to do is really drag this this background, right? This background picture. But what would be nice is if we create our own canvas, because then we can set it to a certain resolution. So let's create a new canvas, and let's just set it to HD resolution. So we set it to 1920 by 1080. We'll click advanced options. We can leave this at 300 dpi, it's fine. And we will set the background fill with transparency, yeah, and click OK. So we just basically got a blank canvas now. We can take the background picture and drag and drop that into GIMP, and it fits quite nicely, you can see that. And we want to now start creating some layers. So if you noticed, let me just undo that. Here is our background layer. So this is like the background, it's transparent at the moment. When I drag and drop this image into GIMP, it creates a new layer. So this is a new layer. So really this background, we don't really need it, because really this is the background, isn't it? So we can go ahead and click on the X button here to delete that layer. We should rename this one, so double click inside and call it background. That's what it is, so let's call it that name, background. Now we can go ahead and drag and drop our next image in. We can either drag and drop it into its own window, or drag and drop it into this this project we're working on right now. Sometimes it's worth dragging and dropping it into a separate window so we can work on the image and then cut and paste it into this document. So right now I'm going to drag and drop it. In fact, what we do is go to File, Open. And when we go to File, Open, let's go to my desktop, and we'll go to these layers, and we can click on the bald eagle image, this one. And when we go to the File, Open, and select the image and open it, it will open it independently. So now you can see there's 2 tabs here, right? There's one with the background, and there's one with this eagle. Let's click on the background one first. Let's go to File, Save As. We should really save our work as we're working along on a project. So I'm just going to call this project layers -01, and it's a XCF file, so that's the GIMP file extension. Later we'll export it as a JPEG file. I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's click save. We can click on this picture here now, so we can independently work on this picture away from the background image, and we're going to cut this out and then place it onto the background image. And there's a few different ways you can do this in GIMP software. Probably the easiest option for us is to use the foreground select. So we click here, and what I'll actually do is I'll put a link in my YouTube description to a playlist where you can find many different tutorials on GIMP of all the different tools, how to use them. I've done quite a few separate tutorials on each tool, so I'll put a link in the YouTube description showing you that. But for now we're going to hold down the left mouse button and click the foreground select, and we want to click this option here, add to current selection, so this one right here. And we're just going to click in here. You can pick any color you want. I'm using like a green color. You can pick really any color you want. Should be fine. Then what we want to do is hold down the control key and zoom in onto this picture, and we're going to draw a selection around the image, not inside, but make sure it goes around the image, around the edge, like this. So it can be quite a rough selection, it doesn't have to be perfect, but try and get close to the picture, and this will allow us to remove the background from this picture basically, right? So once we've done that, we can click here, and then we can hit the enter key. When we hit the enter key, you'll see all of this background goes dark green, and right now it's giving us a paintbrush. And with that paintbrush, this is the stroke width, so we want to reduce that to make the paintbrush smaller, and we're just going to draw around the edge, right? Draw around the edge like this. So this is the inside of the selection, yeah? So if you make a mistake and you click here and you draw outside, just press Ctrl Z or Command Z on the Mac, I believe it is, and we can just draw in this selection here. We're going to do a rough one right now, and then we'll tidy it up a little bit. So we'll come down here, we want to get the wings and the tail here, and along this wing here, like this. So that's just like a rough selection. And then we want to go into these edges, so we just want to get the feathers like here. So we really want to reduce our stroke width a little bit. Reduce it down, let's bring it down, it's too big. It's set to 10 I believe right now, so 10 should be fine. We don't have to go right to the edge. Here I've kind of gone off a little bit, so I just want to undo that. And we'll just do like a little, we're just telling GIMP roughly what do we want to select basically, right? Giving it a rough selection. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Set to like around 3, and we'll just draw in here. You can see it's pretty rough, right? But this just gives GIMP information about what we're trying to select. That's what we're trying to do. So let's just do that, and we can come around this edge a little bit more, and we should get a pretty decent selection like this. And just try and get a little bit closer to this edge around the tail here. And let's see, we can probably get a bit closer in here as well, like this. And then we want to get a lot of these wings, right? So these feathers here, like this. So it takes a little bit of patience to use this software, but once you get a good understanding of how it works, it should make your life a lot easier when you're doing selections. So let's hold down the control key and zoom out a little bit, and we're going to increase the stroke width to make it a lot bigger, not that big, maybe a bit bigger, something like this. And we can just fill in the middle part now, right? We can just like fill all of this in. We want to keep all of this good stuff we want to keep, right? You can see we're selecting as much as we can inside of the image. Let's just zoom in here, and we'll do the same across here. This should work in theory. We should get a pretty decent selection. So once we're happy with that selection, we can probably improve it down here a little bit. Let's just make our selection a bit better here. The more accurate we do this, the better the selection will be. We're basically trying to cut around the image, huh? Like this. So I think that's going to be pretty good. Can get in a bit closer here. We're feeding this software information, that's what we're doing it. We're trying to distinguish the background from the selection that we want to make. So if we do this quite accurately, then we will get a better selection. I'm going to tidy this up, I'm not happy with it, so let's just try and improve it a bit more. And that will just give us a better end result. So I think I'm pretty happy with that, right? So we've got a half decent internal and external selection. We can actually improve this wing here as well. We can get much closer, right? You can see there's quite a big gap there. I think that's going to be good enough. Now all we need to do is click the select button here. It's going to do some maths. It's going to have a little think about it. It's going to say, there you go, there's your selection. So right now you can see these marching ants, we call these marching ants, around the edge of this this eagle, and the selection looks pretty good. So we can do two things. We can either save this document and cut and paste it. So what we could do is just press edit copy and then create a new layer here. And this is going to be its own transparent layer. So we're going to select transparency and click OK. So we've got a new blank layer here, and we can go to edit and paste, and then we can click this tool here, and this will anchor the layer down, and we can remove the background, just hide it, and now we've got a selection of the bird, right? So we, in theory, because you've just spent some effort doing that work, it would make sense that you save this as its own file, then you can cut and paste this into another project later, or you can do some other things to this eagle, right? So we really should save this. We should go to File, Save As. We can save it as an original GIMP file. We just call this bird cutout. So if we ever want to get this bird again cut out, we can open up that file and we can easily just cut and paste it. But for now, we're going to click on the background layer. We're going to go to Edit and Copy. Really, we should name this bird cutout, right? Something like that. And we can click on that and go to edit and then copy. Now we can go back to our document here. This is the one that we're working on. And we can go to edit, paste. And when we paste it, in fact, we've done one thing wrong, right? So I'm going to do Control Z, or we can go to edit, undo paste. And we need to create our own layer. So when we click create a layer, we can create new layer. Here are the basic options, but the most important is fill with. You can fill it with the foreground color. If you select foreground, whatever your paintbrush foreground or background color, you can set it to white, you can set it to a pattern, but we want transparency. So we're going to click transparency and click OK. It's got this like transparent checkered background here, right? We can name this file, this layer now bird. And now we can go to edit and paste. And it says it's a floating selection here, floating selection. So if we click the move tool, we can like move this bird around. We can do that anyway, to be fair, but what we need to do is anchor it down to this layer, so now it belongs on this particular layer, so we can move that layer independently right here. So we can put the bird over here somewhere. One thing we can do is go to this tool here. We can do rectangle select, and right now if I zoom out a little bit, this layer, this bird layer, is all of this yellow dot. So like this is the layer that represents it. It's transparent, but what we want to do is draw a box around the bird only. Let's say something like this. You can grab the handles and just drag it a bit bigger. So you can grab these handles and just resize it. Something like this. We want a little bit of a gap around the edge, like this. Bring this one in a little bit. And then we can go to layer, crop to selection. And when we do that, this layer now has this selection. It's this size, roughly the size of the bird. And now we can go to edit. We can go to select none. Now when we go to the move tool, we can move that bird around a little bit easier. We can see the box around it, but more importantly, we can do things like the scale. So we can hold down here, we can click on scale, and then we can click on the bird, and now the handles are only the selection that we cropped to, right? These handles, instead of being way out here somewhere and resizing it, now it's a bit more sensible and a bit more accurate. So we can click on the handle to resize the bird. We can click on the middle box and bring it over here somewhere, and that would be our bird there. We can click scale, right? So that's one example of creating a layer and then applying creating a new layer and applying an object to that layer, or this bird in this case. We can go back to this bird image and actually close it. We're finished with that, right? We can click save, and we'll just save that. And then if we ever want to edit that bird again or copy it again, we've got a file here called bird cutout. And if we open up that file by double clicking, it will open it in a new tab again, and here's the bird cutout. So you don't have to do that work again. We can reuse that in a different composition. We call this a composition, right? Different images stacked together. So right now we have two layers, right? Pat yourself on the back. You've created a background layer, and you've created another layer called bird, and you've placed that bird, and it's got transparency. Because you remember the original one had all of this pink background and this sunlight. We didn't want that, so we cut it out. We can apply that same logic now to the next image, which is going to be the plane. So let's go ahead and go to File, Open, and we'll click on the plane image, which I believe is this. Let's find the plane image. Where is it? This one, Flyer. This one here, we can see the plane. We'll click Open, and that opens in its own window. Now, if you notice, this particular picture has a very clear background. So we could try and use the magic, the fuzzy select tool. So we can click on it, and we can click on the background, and you can see that it's drawn a dotted edge around the whole of the image, and it's done a pretty good job already. So this is another way to do a selection. And then what we can do is go to select and invert, and basically we're selecting everything but the background now, because we inverted the selection. I believe that's correct. We're going to test it in a minute. We're going to go to edit, copy, and we're going to create a new layer, and it's going to be transparent. We'll click OK, and we can name this plane, and then we can go to edit and paste, and then anchor it down, and then we can hide this background layer. Now we've got the plane, right, separated. So we should save this as a GIMP file, save as, and we'll call it plane, and just save it. Now we can click on this layer called plane, go to edit, copy, and we can go back to our original image. We're going to create a new layer, and it's going to be transparent as well, and we click OK, and then we can call this plane. And now we can go to edit, paste. Here's our plane, but we've got some artifacts here. Can you see around the edges and stuff? So we're going to fix that in a moment. And then we can go to the anchor icon and click that, and now it's sitting on its own layer. It's not the best selection, but it's okay as a demonstration of creating layers, right? It's not the worst, but it's not the best. And then we can go to our resize tool, scale tool. We can click on the plane and then click on the canvas, and we can scale this plane down to about this size, and I want it up here in the background somewhere. I'm going to click scale. But if you notice, if we hide the background, well, you can see the artifacts here in the corner. We'll call these artifacts because they're like, it's like the clouds or whatever was in the previous picture before we cut it. So what we can do is click on this plane layer, go to the eraser tool, and we can set its size, and we can set the brush to like a nice round brush like this. Just change its size a little bit. You can see it's quite a large brush here. We can just paint or just erase anything that we don't want. So just go around the image, but don't go over the plane, and that will just get rid of any artifacts. So can you see the box is like this sort of shape, but the plane really, it's all in this bottom corner over here. So we can go to the rectangle tool, and we can draw a rectangle just around the plane now, like this. And then if we go to layer, crop to selection, now it will the handles will just be around the plane. It's just a little bit easier to resize and twist it around and do other things that we might want to do. Let's go to select and none, because we've made a selection with the box. So if we go to select none, it will deselect that particular action. Now we can go to the scale tool. We can hold down our left mouse button, and we can go to the flip tool, flip it. So we click on the flip tool, we click on the picture. Now the plane is facing this way because I want it to kind of be over here. But I want to rotate it, so I'm going to click on it again. I'm going to click on the rotate tool, click on the picture, and we're going to grab the handle in the top here and just rotate it around to sort of this direction, like this. And I'm going to click rotate here, this option here, rotate. Now we can click on the move tool, and we can grab our plane and we can drag it over here, right? And we can click on the background and we can see what's going on. We can hold down the space bar. Let's see, this is not the space bar. Sorry, hold down our middle mouse button and we can pan the canvas like this. You can move this canvas around, yeah? Hold down the control key to zoom in and out, and use your mouse wheel, and hold down the middle mouse button to pan the canvas. So we've got a bird, we've got a plane. I want to make this plane a lot smaller, so I'm going to click back on the plane layer, go to this tool here, where is it, this one, and we'll go to the scale, or press Shift and S, click on the plane. I'm going to scale it right down. I want it to be like right in the distance, and click scale, something around this size, yeah? So we can go back to this image here and we can close it. And now we've got a bird and a plane, and we've got one more image to work with. Now this image here, the final image that you downloaded, it's already got transparency. It's a PNG file. So someone's already gone through all the effort of removing this background for us. They've been kind enough to do that for us. So we can just drag and drop this picture straight into this image, this canvas, right? And the tree is really big. Let's call it a tree. And then we can click on the scale tool and click on the tree picture. And we can grab this handle and just drag it in to make it smaller. And I want this tree. We can grab the middle handle here and drag it so it kind of sits around here somewhere. and we can click scale, and then we can click on the move tool and click on the bottom canvas or this bottom image, and we can see the tree. If we zoom in a little bit, it's a little bit off, right? Can you see it's a little bit off? So what we can do is click on the tree, click on the move tool, and just drag it down a little bit, and then zoom out, and now you can see the tree there. And we always click on the bottom canvas so we can see everything. Now it's not 100% correct, this tree, because it's kind of like just floating in cyberspace here on this image. So we can do one thing. We can click on the let's see what we're going to do here. What we do is we'll click on the tree picture, and we'll click on the eraser tool, and we zoomed in quite close, right? We can see the brush here, you can probably just about see it. We'll click on the tree, and we're just going to erase some of the tree so it looks like it's sitting behind the hill rather than sitting right on top of it. Now it's sitting behind the hill, you can see the hill like this. This just makes it a little bit better, right? Let's go to File, Save. We can save our work, and I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call it Layers 2. I'm going to make a new file, but I think this one is pretty good. But now we can just have a little bit of fun while we're here. So we can go ahead and click on the bird. We can click on that bird. We can go to our color. We can go to the hue and saturation, and we can change the color of the bird. We can make it purple. We can make it green. Let's make it like a purple color, and we can change the lightness and the darkness, right? We can play around with the colors of each one of these images. So we might make it like this purple color. We click OK. We can go ahead and click on the plane. Let's click on the plane itself, and then we can go to the image, the colors, and we can go to, like, there's quite a few different options and you need to go and experiment with them. You can go do things like invert it, so like it's like a white plane rather than being a black plane. Like all the colors have been inverted, so the windows are now black and everything else is white. It's almost like change the opposites, right? You can press Ctrl Z to undo that and Ctrl Y to redo it. You can see between the two different ones. Might just leave this white, and then we click on the tree, and we can go back to color, and we can go to hue and saturation, and we can change the color of the tree. We can make it a nice red tree, like a purple one or a blue one. I think like a nice purple sort of red color. You can change the lightness or the darkness. You can change the saturation, make it much brighter or much darker, right? Something like this. Click OK. Obviously I'm just messing around here, I'm not doing anything too serious, but the idea is here for you to learn layers. Most important is learning how to use the layers, right? So we can just middle mouse click. So what do? We've got a background, we've got it set to a specific size. We cut around the picture of the bird, we cut around the picture of the plane, and we've got this tree in the background. And that's kind of our layers, our composition. Now you can take 10 images, you can take 20 images, you can take 50 images, and you can layer them up. And depending on where this layer is, it will depend on how visible that layer is, right? So you can see the plane, this is the tree, let's call it tree again. So you can see the plane sits a layer below the tree, right? So it's one layer below. So if we were to click the move tool and move the plane, we can move it behind the tree, because it's underneath the tree and the tree sits on top, on the top layer. If we grab the tree and drag it down one, then the plane sits on top, right? So the layers, the way that the layers are stacked determines which layer takes precedence, right? So the tree sits at the top, so it sits right at the very, very top layer, so it sits in front of everything else. It will even sit in front of the bird, even though the bird looks closer to us in the image. It's actually, the tree is actually sitting on a layer above the bird, and we can test that by clicking on the bird, clicking on the move tool and dragging it. You can see the bird goes behind the tree, but because it's sitting over here you don't really notice that. So the way that we stack the layers is quite important as well, especially when we're putting different objects behind different elements in our scene. It doesn't have to be a landscape, it can be anything, right? It can be anything, completely anything that you want. So these are the fundamental ideas of using layers in GIMP, and this applies to Photoshop and it applies to lots of other different types of applications as well. Even Blender things have to sit in different layers or different orders in order for your composition to be made, right? Even in Premiere Pro, when you're doing video editing, you have layers. And we stack these layers in a certain order in order to get our composition correct. It doesn't matter too much the layer stacking if all of the images don't overlap. It's only when images overlap we need to have priority in terms of our stacking order. This is important. So let's go to File, Save. And if we wanted to export this as a JPEG file, we can go to File, Export As, and then we'll click on this option down here, select by file type, and we'll select JPEG in here, JPEG. And it's just called Layers 2, and we'll click Export, and we'll just set it at 90% compression, click Export, and we can just close down this file. We could open up the original one that we made before, so we can do Open, and we can select the Layers 1 file, this original one, and click Open this one. This is the one without all the crazy colors in it. We can go to File, Export As, and also make this a JPEG file. So let's select JPEG and click Export, and then we can click Export again here, and then we can close this file and close down GIMP. So inside of here we have quite a few useful resources. So if any time you wanted to grab this bird again, you've got a GIMP file that contains that bird and that bird only. So if we open it, you can go and create a whole new project, and you'll never have to cut around this picture because you've got it already on its own layer, right? So it's quite important to save things separately so that you can go and reuse them over and over. And the end result is we've taken this background picture, we've taken the bird, we've taken the tree and the plane, and we've combined them all together to create this, what we call a composition. So here's one example, and here's another example. The only difference between these is going to be the color, right? The color between the two different examples. One will have this pink bird, you can see on this one is yellow. It's got like a pink beak, and this one's got yellow, and the feathers are slightly different colors. A black plane, here's a white one, here's a red tree, and here's a green one. You can go around now and play around with different pieces of content. By no means is this an in-depth tutorial on GIMP software. There's too many things to try and explain to you in one tutorial. So I'll put a link in the YouTube description to my playlist, where I've got probably about 60 or 70 different tutorials explaining different components or different concepts within GIMP. Right, so there's different tools there that you can use, and it's just simply impossible to try and explain that in one video, especially as this is just a beginner's tutorial for using layers. So now I want you to go and have some fun. Download these images, go and create your own composition, and then go and download a completely different set of images and go and create a different composition. It can have a completely different background. It could be in space for all you like. Could be spaceships, could be rockets, could be all food. There could be a table, and you're going to go and cut around some different types of food and put it onto the table. You get the idea and you get the concept. Now you can go and create something very creative and go and share it on your social media account, or you know, just have fun. That's what it's all about. So that's the end of this tutorial. It wasn't meant to be complex. I wanted to try and keep it very, very simple so you get a good understanding of how layers work in GIMP 2.10. Okay, that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you find it useful. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can access over 700 free video tutorials, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.